what is the sales process like? Once we're done with the valuation, we're ready to go. What are the steps that you would take us through or to be able to sell?
It's very critical that the client, the selling company, is prepared. Clean set of books, also clear messaging by the holders or a majority shareholder as far as protocol, as it relates to who in the company knows that the company's for sale. There's got to be a playbook. There's got to be a plan and protocol as it is initiated in the beginning as to what the process is and communications. Then we go through a due diligence process with the company to gain knowledge about the business. We usually set up a data room for prospective buyers to access once they've signed NDAs and all the formality. We review the due diligence materials to understand the business. And we go through a Q&A process with the company after we have reviewed the due diligence materials. We certainly do, we either sometimes do site visits or in-person meetings with the client that we're selling their business. They may ask us to include various stakeholders and shareholders. It's up to them who they want us to include. And then we put together the market materials, the pitch decks, the SIMs, and put that all together. And then depending on what the client's requirement is, we prefer to do a rifle approach on a marketing process once we're ready to go to market. Some clients may want us to go to many people from a shotgun approach versus a rifle approach. And we also discuss timeline in the sale process with the clients just to set expectations. There's a lot of clients that, how soon can you sell our business? I mean, we have this, one prospective client that is looking to do a bridge and says, well, you stated it's a 90-day process, but we can't wait 90 days. So it just depends how prepared the client is. And then once we go to market, we'll request indications of interest from prospective clients. We review those with the clients. We set up management meetings. We also set up a Q&A session after the prospective buyers have reviewed the materials. After NDA is signed, we'll go through a Q&A process. And then we'll go back out to those prospective buyers to determine who wants to issue LOIs. We'll review the LOIs with the client. We'll then go back to the prospective buyers and try to negotiate, the best price. And once we do that and we accept the LOI and our client accepts the LOI, then the prospective buyers go through their due diligence process. A deeper dive due diligence process. And once that all checks out okay by the buyer issues a purchase and sale agreement. We then negotiate the purchase and sale agreement and with the company and their counsel, and then execute and close.
Part of the magic of at least our process is that we try to get 3 to 5 really intense, interested buyers. And behind the scenes, we keep encouraging them. They've given us an indication of interest, which is usually, we've given them the EBITDA number because they haven't done their due diligence yet. So they have that number. They give us the multiple, okay, or maybe it's a revenue in a multiple, right? So we kind of know the pricing that they're thinking of. And a lot of them will actually come back to us and say, we're thinking of a multiple of 6 to 7. How's that sound? So it's this whole dance that we do at that point, because you see, when we put a seller on the market, we don't list. It's not like listing real estate. We don't put a price out there. Okay. We let the market dictate to us what the price is. However, if the price is not as high as we want, or we think we can leverage one buyer against the other, we might say, well, there's a couple buyers that are kind of right around that 8 multiple. Do you think you can push this up? And so it is a dance until you finally get to that ideal buyer, at least price wise. But also, and this is part of the dance too, is when the management presentations are made, the seller really needs to be very, very acutely aware of who he thinks that his company will fit best with, because that's a critical component, right? Yes, cash is king, but so is culture. And that's a very important part when we do the management presentations and they share what their the buyer's culture is, that there's a really good fit for our sellers.
Especially if a person is an owner operator, or they're the ones who originally built the business. They didn't buy it from
Mhm.
someone else and then take it over. There is an emotional attachment to employees, the livelihood. You want it to continue, and you want it to continue in a way that is aligned with your original vision. So I think that's important to hear, that first of all, you guys value that and recognize it. And I think it's important for anyone who's selling to realize that it's not just about the money, because the person who buys it and feels, sees the culture fit will be able to pay more. So you want to be really self-aware of your own business and what the right buyer would look like. Two things that you said that I think I personally didn't know, was that in the very beginning, you don't actually put a price like you do on a house. It doesn't say, hey, this house is $1 million, come buy me. You actually go through and the valuation process is incredibly important, because you come up with either the EBITDA or the revenue, which is what's essential for the valuation. And then someone is actually bidding on the multiple.
Yes, that's what it means, right? It's just a math formula, right?
So if you have $3 million in EBITDA, which means kind of like, for those, again, if you're not familiar with it, you got to go Google it, because it is a little complicated, but it's basically kind of like the net profit when everything's.
It's close. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
pre-tax, but it's close. Yeah.
Yeah. Taken into account. So let's say you did $3 million of net profit, essentially, approximately, then your potential buyer would say, I'll do 3 times that or 4 times that. And the average multiple they give, they would do comps saying, oh, this other, let's say you have a cookie company, 3 million in EBITDA, another cookie company was sold for 3 times their EBITDA. So that's what the buyer would do. They'd go research this with all of their team and say, I think it's fair to pay 3 times that. Or they might.
We've done our own research to back up what we think that multiple should be too. So we're both going at it, and we try to see if we come and converge together. Yeah.
So that's in the beginning phase. Once you've accepted an LOI, which I don't know exactly what that term means, but I'm assuming like letter of intent.
Letter of intent. Yes.
Okay. So once you've accepted a letter of intent and they do that deep dive, do you ever come back and find that they try to negotiate on the number that you guys calculated? Is that ever on the table?
Yes, always. Honestly, they always try to come back and chip away. Maybe they analyze the EBITDA number differently than you do. So there's a discussion of that. They look at working capital differently than you do. They look at problems that maybe aren't really problems that we thought were advantages. They may turn it around and say, well, this is a problem for us. So yeah, they're always trying to nibble away, even though they've given you an indication of what they're going to pay. Now, the best situation is where this company is so strong and we presented it so well, and we've had a few of these where they don't nibble. So I say always they nibble, they nibble a little bit, but now they know that they're in a bidding contest with somebody else because there are a lot of people interested in this company. We had one where we had 30 parties interested, and the most difficult task we had, was culling the 30 down to 3 to 5 buyers. It was amazing. And they kept bidding up the price. So I shouldn't say we always have them nibble, but that was an extreme example of an incredibly good company that everybody wanted. So they weren't going to nibble, but a lot of times they will nibble. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in general, from a macro perspective, how long does the sale process typically take? I'm sure it depends on the type of company and how clear the sale is and how many people are interested, but could you give us a range?
I would say 6 to 9 months.
If it's a
Sure.
really good company, it should sell that quickly. It just depends. It could also take 12, 15 months too,
Right.
because
More
maybe
complex.
yeah, well, it's more complex. Also, the legalese, the lawyers are debating
Right.
issues and reps and warranties. So you never know, but I mean, I think 6 to 15 months is probably a good broad range, if you will.
That's helpful for someone to keep in mind. So 3
Right,
months.
it's not
Have to sell in
overnight.
3 months.
It's
Yeah.
not overnight, right?